Lesego Van Niekerk is Chairperson of the South African Dance Alliance, and she joins us now to speak about their plight. A very good evening to you, and thank you so much for speaking to us, Lesego. So let's talk practicalities here. It's one thing to say that the industry is being overlooked while other industries are being opened. Yours is still shut down. What exactly do you mean by this? I think for some people it's just a matter of what their impressions are of what's really going on as opposed to your lived experience.
Thank you so much for having me. At the moment, the most pressing issue really is that artists are not able to work. Unfortunately, the fact of the matter is that not everybody can work from home, and artists are just one of those people, particularly those that work within the theatre and dance sector. We primarily engage with audiences. That is how we work. That is the bottom line of our work. And what we are calling for, one of the things we are calling for, is the president to open theatres, at least allow us to have theatres open according to the capacity of each theatre. At the moment, it's a bottom line of 50 people per theatre. And right now we are treating it as a generic case. Unfortunately, that is not the case. There are some theatres that can allow 150 people into the theatre, but then there are much bigger theatres that allow 1,000 people. So the bottom line of 50 is actually irresponsible and quite frankly, quite lazy. And we do have the tools to help the president and the minister to see to this issue that is going to allow practitioners to get back to work and feed their families.
Mm-hmm. The call that is being made by the South African arts industry is that the head of the ministry, Mr. Nathi Mthethwa, should roll. What are your core grievances around him and his management of the industry during lockdown, during COVID?
Minister Nathi Mthethwa has been very unresponsive to the sector. He has been ignoring us. He has not engaged with the sector one-on-one. Earlier this year, we saw a 60-day sit-in staged by artists at the National Arts Council, where we were really just trying to find answers as to what has happened to the 300 million rands that we now know has been handled very, very poorly. And even after 60 days, and during the 60 days, he failed to even so much as engage the sector as to what it is that needs to happen for us to find a solution. Among other things, he has really shown a lack of interest really in the sector, and also a lack of knowledge as to what it is that actually goes on within the sector. And I think that that is the problem. I mean, those are two very simple things that I've noted, but they go a long way to either running a sector effectively or not. And what Minister Nathi Mthethwa has shown is an ineffective administration in office.
So just latching on the terms a long way, for how long has this situation, the acrimony between artists and the minister, being brewing? Because previously, I understand there was a call for the president to replace Mr. Mthethwa by February 2021. Is that correct? And what is failing? Why are you unable to meet each other, resolve your issues? Because there have been many sit-ins. It is clear that it's a relationship that chafes.
Well, the first thing that we're asking the president to do is to remove Minister Nathi Mthethwa, but that doesn't help the situation. It doesn't help to just remove the head. There's also so many other things that go into running a department. So the second thing we're asking is that he reshuffles the Department of Sports, Arts and Culture, and also calls for them to engage with the sector. For more than a year now, we've been calling for engagement with the sector. I remember, quite frankly, it was during the sit-in when Minister Nathi Mthethwa himself called a meeting over Zoom, and he didn't even arrive at his own meeting that he has called. So the biggest issue at this point, besides not delivering on what needs to be delivered, is really the lack of consultation with the industry. And as we saw in the clip that you played earlier on, Sibongile Mngoma said that we do have the tools and we do have the plans that we can implement to help, but there is no interaction. And when somebody is adamant on not interacting with the sector, that just proves that he is ineffective to be a leader. Part of being a leader is interacting with the sector and admitting that you might not know everything, and what is it that you can learn from your people that can help you to do an effective job.
I want to point to a tweet he once sent out, Minister Mthethwa, previously tweeting, South African theatre is alive and well with performing arts institutions of the Department of Sport, Arts and Culture, such as Artscape, Market Theatre, Paco FS3, Durban Playhouse, and he goes on to name them, including Windebrow Theatre, offering an array of indigenous drama and dance, etc. So who is getting this work if artists are saying that so severely impacted are you by COVID-19 that not only are some dying, but obviously some aren't even able to make a living?
The theatres that you've just mentioned, which are the theatres that the minister listed, you're absolutely correct. Those happen to be the theatres that are funded by the state. So, they are in a much better position, and he can go ahead and say that theatres are alive and well if he is basing it on those 5 theatres that are funded by the state. But there are so many other private theatres that are having to shut down. We see the Fugard Theatre that has given so many artists, including myself, a place that we can call home and a paycheck month after month, year after year. We see theatres like the Tin Town Theatre, the TX Theatre, so many theatres that are under threat that are not getting that funding from the state. So obviously he will speak from a position of privilege, because those are the theatres that are privileged enough to be funded by the sector. But to be quite honest, this leads to the same point, that theatres are in actual fact not alive and well. Theatres are dying, and those that work in theatres are dying along with the theatres. Right. We are currently operating on 50 people a theatre. It just does not work.
The relief funding, many have complained that even if it's made available, they have not benefited from it. So you were speaking about an overhaul of the system, not only getting rid of the minister. What needs to change, A, with regards to that? Because the money has been set aside. So the question is, who's getting it? And what needs to change overall in the industry so that these grievances do not keep coming up time and time again?
One of the biggest things, and I'll name 2, the first one is accountability. We have a problem with accountability in our sector, particularly in our country, really, where people are not being held responsible for what is going on. To this day, we don't know who is responsible for the mismanagement of those funds. They say those funds were not mismanaged, neither here nor there. At the moment, we're sitting with artists and organizations who have still not been paid the second wave of their payment for the PSP funding. We're sitting with artists who have still not received either communication or the payment for their third wave relief fund. Both of these were supposed to be concluded on the 31st of March, and the 22nd of February was the closing date of the application for the third wave relief funding. So as you can see, there is, first of all, no accountability. And secondly, there's no transparency in our sector. Artists are struggling to even put in applications because the process in itself, just to get an application in, is such a problem that they give up before they can even try. So there are so many things that need to be unraveled, but those are one of the 2, accountability and transparency.
Thank you so much for speaking to us, Lesego Van Niekerk, Chairperson of the South African Dance Alliance.